Blackboard and I'll create it. I'll use it too. The same file that I've given you on Blackboard, I'll be using it too.
So we download it as a.
Yeah, you just download it and then create a project. And if you like, just copy the class there. It's called product.java. I'm not sure if it has a package statement, but you can always change it. Okay, so let's create a new project. I'm going to call it product stock. And since this is Tuesday class, I'll put Tuesday with it because then it makes it easy for me. And we'll put it. I'm calling it product stock. We are basically working with an inventory system today, right? So I have products and I have to stock them in inventory. So they will be, so we'll have to define a product class. We'll have to define a stock manager class. And then of course the tester to test these classes. And in addition, as I said, I'll show you how to create your own exception classes today, right? There are many exception classes that you can work with in Java. They're already available. But if you have to for your application and it's custom, how to build that too. Okay, I'll show you that too. Okay, so it's Tuesday. And we'll make it here. So you can place it wherever you like and you don't have to put Tuesday with it. It's just for me. Okay, there it is. Please remove this license information from top of the file, guys. Like some of you have not even removed that for me. Like how untidy is that? NetBeans gives you some kind of license header at the head, right? Which you can go and see what it is. I had to read about it because NetBeans was new for me. It's not a big deal. We don't want it. So remove it. Don't give me extra comments. Don't give me extra code that you're not even using in your program. You're creating scanner objects and JOption pane objects and you never use them. I've never asked for you to say hello something on the screen and you're giving me messages that I haven't even asked for, which tells me all you did was copy and paste and then kind of just added what you wanted. When I show you things in class, I'm trying to show you as much as I can. That doesn't mean my code is neat and clean. It's not. I know it is not neat and clean because I'm trying to show you different ways of doing the same thing. You pick up the one that you like. So extra messages, extra objects, please remove them from your code when you give it to me. Okay. So I've written all this in my feedback. Hopefully I've been able to do it for everybody. Okay, so what we do here is, okay, so do this if you want to. I mean, I'll pick it up too. So the same file that you've picked up from Blackboard, I'll pick it up too. Where did I place it? There it is. Okay, so I've given you a file called product.java, okay? You can just simply copy it into your, it doesn't have a package statement. So we are good. You can just copy it and add the package statement afterwards. I'll do this because I already have a package ready. So create in your source, in your package, a new class called product. Class names use Pascal naming convention. Thankfully, 90% of the class knows how to use naming conventions in Java. There is still 10% who does not. So again, please keep in mind. So create a class called product. And since I've already given you that class, your package statement, whatever you've called your package. So my package is called product stock Tuesday. And there, and there. Oh God, why do I see so many? Did I misspell it? Products, no. Product stock Tuesday spelling is wrong. That's why. Okay, I can rename this one. Refactor, rename. One single wrong package statement can create those many red lines on your code. Okay, there it is. I still see some red squigglies. So let's see where the problem is occurring. I still see. Oh, okay, that's fine. My exception you can ignore for a minute. Okay, that's okay. So please see that you add the package statement. The package statement will depend upon the package you've created. Don't copy mine, right? So you created a project. You have a package by the same name. You can always change the names, you know that, but it depends on you, right? So you have a package by that name, and in that package, you'll have your files. So just put the right package statement. Once we are ready, I'll go through this. Everybody downloaded and ready with the product class? Okay, so this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start building an inventory system. So an inventory, if you're not aware, is basically where you stock up the products, right? So any company will have an inventory system. All big stores will have it. They stock their product and then they sell it off. And there are many things that can happen with the product. When the product reaches a reorder level in the stock, it is reordered again, so that it don't go out of it. You can only stock to a maximum limit. I mean, there is space issues, right? You can't say, oh, keep on stocking and stocking forever. When you don't have enough, you can sell, right? So suppose even if I say I have stocked it and my maximum level is 100, somebody comes and asks for 150 of something, I can't still give it because I don't have it. You know what I mean? So I'll take care of all those things as I go on. But at its simplest, very easy. I've just started with the simplest. The simplest that I need. So notice how I have said this class product defines or models. This does not simulate, right? Many of you wrote the simulate verb for employee also. We simulate machines. When I wrote the calculator, it was a machine I was writing. So I was simulating it. But you can't simulate an employee. You define an employee. You describe an employee. So a class always defines, describes, models, simulates. Use any of the verb, but according to what it is. So here I'm defining or modeling a product, and the details are, if there are a lot, I don't mention it. I just say it's attributes and methods. So that's all I need from you. A small 2-line, 3-line purpose that makes sense. It displays the monthly salary, no. It asks for the user name, for the employee name, no. That's not what the class does. It's just a definition. It just defines a class. It just defines an entity, right? So my product class is describing basically details of a product, its attributes and methods. If the attributes are less in number, like you had name and salary for your person, for your employee, you could have added it. I have a few here and they will kind of increase with time. So I'll kind of just say it's attributes and methods. And you know what? This is just the starting. I've said it will be used to create products that will be stocked in an inventory. So I've said what will be its use. So that when you look at the instance variables, they make sense to you. So it's not yet complete, but that's our purpose today, to complete it. And it will depend upon how much time we have, and that will kind of determine what can you do as an in-class project. Okay, so every product has an ID. This ID will be unique for every product. And you'll say, how will you ensure that? I will. When I add this product to the inventory, I'll ensure it. I won't allow duplicate products to be added. Okay. So every product has an ID. Every product has a name. Every product has a quantity associated with it, which tells me how much of this product in stock. Therefore, I've told you I'm building an inventory system so that you'll say quantity is not something that we kind of describes a product, but a product will always be stocked. So there is a quantity associated with it. And of course, every product will have a price. More instance variables that you can add to this class. Let's hear some ideas. What else can you add? So think of an inventory system, which is nothing but stocking up of products. So I've said a product will have an ID, a name, how much in stock, and will have a price. What else can you add if you are a little aware of what an inventory system is? What else can you add as an attribute for this product? Think about it. Is there a maximum limit in which you can stock a particular product? Yes. So we can add another attribute called maximum quantity. So quantity is different from maximum quantity. Quantity means quantity on hand, how much you have. And maximum quantity will tell you you cannot stock more than this. Another attribute which will be helpful will be the reorder level. Reorder level, why? Because every time the quantity goes below a certain level, you'll have to reorder the product, because how else will you maintain your inventory? You can't keep saying, okay, sell, sell, sell. It becomes 0. And then the next customer that comes in, you say, oh, sorry, I don't have it. So you always restock at a particular level, which is called the reorder level. So those are another 2 attributes that can be added to this class. And that's what I will leave to you as an assignment. Okay, so I'll start with this. So what I've done is I've kind of given comments, a unique identifying number of the product. The name of the product may not be unique. You could have bolts, or you could have anything. If it's a computer stock, you could have a mouse. Mouse is a name, but then IDs will be different. It's description. You could always add a description. You could say IBM mouse, or you could say Microsoft, or whatever. So there could be a description, but the name may not be unique, but the ID will always be unique. because by ID is how you stock it in your inventory. Then quantity, the quantity of the product in stock, and then the price of the product. So notice how I've started giving comments with my attributes, because they may not always be obvious to everybody. So as I go on and I write more code, I'm going to make it more verbose, in the sense more comments with it, and they are just normal comments. And for your information, if I'm asking you for an author and date in Java doc comments at the head, this is how you write the author, with the @author. This is how you can write the date, either with @since or with version, whatever, that doesn't matter. But I need to see the date, but I want to see Java doc comments. I don't want you to write your name without the @author. So when I say I need Java doc comments, I'm looking for Java doc comments, and I'm doing them. I'm doing them in every program that I write for you. Okay, now the normal, we'll write a constructor, and notice something else. I don't know, I just saw it on another program, and I thought I could show you this. This is another way of writing your Java doc comments. You don't write it in the same line, you kind of put it in the next line. Just some people prefer it, depends on you. So notice how my constructor to create objects of class product, it takes an ID to set the product's identifying number, it takes a name to set the name of the product, and it takes a quantity to set its initial quantity. You'll say, what about price? It's missing. So please add. I forgot my param. Please add another param. Call it, what did I call it? Price. And what is the use of this price? To set the price of the. If you like to write your comments this way, sure. But you have to tell me what the parameter is. You just can't say add param price and leave it. That's an incomplete comment. You're not telling me anything about it. So you have to tell me what is the use of this price. So please use meaningful names. All my names are meaningful. They make sense. I haven't called them X, Y, Z. I don't know what X is, what Y is. So I've used meaningful names everywhere, but I also have to tell it is a requirement that you describe your param. Something that you will do in your card game. I've asked for every method needs a description, params, and @return wherever required. And that's how you do it. Okay. Okay, so what do we basically do? And let's add this also, because it is throwing it. So @throws. It throws my exception, and the big thing is, what is this my exception, right? Which we'll just write. It says it will throw an exception, and you're saying, when will it throw an exception? Maybe quantity is invalid, it throws it, because quantity cannot be negative. Price cannot be negative. So all that checks I will make in what? In my set methods. So set methods, when they throw an exception, and it comes back to the constructor, it will throw an exception. So my exception, if the product cannot be created, or if the object cannot be created. But we don't use kind of object word here. We'll say if the project cannot be created. Now here comes, what is this my exception, which I've added at the throws clause in my comments also, and I've added the throws in my constructor also. We've seen these two things before. A method has to throw it to kind of say, I'm throwing it. But what is this my exception? So do this with me now, please. I'm going to create my own exception class. So go to your source package, do a right click. What is it called? Product stock Tuesday. Okay, I just have to remember. Create a new Java class. Call it my exception. M capital, E capital. If you follow conventions, you cannot go wrong. And say finish. We'll remove this because we don't need it. It already put the package statement for me. Please see that the author is meaningful. I don't want to see the names of your machines there. And what does it do? It creates, or this class creates a custom exception class. Custom means according to my application. So I want to give in my messages. When you use something that's already in there, you could use Java classes, exception classes. For example, if your parameter is illegal, you can use the illegal argument exception. If you know that some problem will occur with the arithmetic of your code, you can use the arithmetic exception. So you could. There is nothing stopping you using exception classes that are already present in the Java class library, as long as they make sense. The names make sense, right? So you can use illegal argument exception, arithmetic exception, any exceptions that mean what you're trying to do. But here I'm creating an exception class that is custom built in the sense because I won't find anything for a value should not be less than 0. I won't find any exception for this in Java. Or if I'm trying to give an identifying number and it's not unique. I won't find anything for this in Java. So if you can find something that will work and make sense, use it. Otherwise, create your own exception class. And how do you do it? As simple as this. So we'll add whatever we need to. I'll say the since, and this is June 13th today. You can start with your version numbers if you like, and it has exactly to be written like I'm writing it, guys. Spellings, grammar. V is small, A is small. Authors, no, author, even if you have more than one, okay? And this is version 1.0. That's all you need for 2 marks. How big is that? Doesn't even take 2 minutes, right? That's what was in your assignment 1. Anyway, you will need much more than that. Now, how do you create your own exception classes? You extend the exception class of or for in Java. So you've seen this extends for the first time. In its simplest meaning, it means I am inheriting this class, my exception. You could have called it anything. I just called it my exception, not a very good name, but product exception would have been a better name. Or application exception, I just called it my exception. Not a very good name, but there it is. And what is it extending? It is extending the exception class of the Java library. So by default, all the methods that are available in the exception class I can use. And it also gives me this inheritance, which says I can use whatever belongs to you. That's how you define your own exception classes. You always extend the exception class in the Java class library. You could be extending some other, maybe arithmetic exception, maybe illegal argument exception. But this is the most common one. You just say extends exception. Now your class automatically behaves like an exception class, right? So that's your first thing to do, extends. Extend means inherit from. Keep in mind, this extends object is present in all your class definitions, though we have never written it. This is always there, extends object. So extends object is the default nature. So now my exception class has extending from 2 classes. 1, the exception class, and 2 by default also from the object class, okay? But in Java, you can only extend from 1 class at a time. You can't say extends this, comma, this, comma, this. You can only extend from 1 class. The object is default, okay? Now, as it is a class, what will I need? I will need a constructor. So write your constructor. Constructors are public, do not have a return type, have the same name as the name of your class, and the use, and the use of a constructor, as we all know, is to create an object of the class. I'm going to do a very simple thing here. I'm going to call the constructor of the superclass in my constructor. So super is a reserved word, which simply means call the constructor of the superclass. Who's the superclass of this class? Exception. It just calls it. Look at it.
Tuesday.
Sorry?
Sorry, I thought it was supposed to answer a question.
Okay. No, we are just saying super. And then here, I'll open the exception class for you so that you can see what I'm doing. Go and look for Java documentation. Uh-oh. You can pick up any, doesn't matter 7 or 8 because both of them will have it. 8 is better because that's what we are using. Okay, and then, no, I don't like this. Then I have to search for it. It's usually it will say 8 and I click on it and it should come. Okay, we'll have to look for this. No, I don't want to download and install reference. You know what? Is that doing the same things? That's giving me docs. That's giving me the API. So all I'll do is I'll come here. Yeah, I'll do an 8. There. You just change the number and it will come, right? I don't want to go and look for it. Okay, so we are looking for the class called exception. Of course, it will take ages to come, but there it is somewhere. Not yet there, not yet there. Uh-oh. See, there are so many exceptions. There are so many already defined for you. So as I said, if you can use one, sure. But my aim is to create thousands and thousands of exception classes. Oh, there it is. We are almost there. There it is. Okay, so there is your exception class, right? This exception class has a number of children, a number of subclasses. Many other classes have inherited from it. Notice you could maybe, I don't know if you can recognize a few. Maybe you can recognize the arithmetic exception, the AWT, maybe not. Data format exception makes sense. Data format means you've used a symbol like percentage, 0.2f for a name which is a string. That's when you get a data format exception. Okay, so there are these exception classes have already been defined for you. And as I said, if you can use one, good. If you want to create something that's only for your application and doesn't make, you can't find anything of it in Java, create one. So therefore I extended the exception class. And in this exception class, notice it is there from 1.2. It was introduced right when Java was introduced. And notice it has a few constructors. There is one which takes no parameters. There is another one which takes a message. And there is a third one which takes a message and a throwable. Kind of we leave it alone. Throwable is just the parent of exception class. And there are two more. What I'm trying to do is this, and this is a rule. Whenever you extend from a class in Java, the first statement in your constructor should be a call to the constructor of your parent. That's a rule, right? So whenever you write a constructor in a class and that class has inherited from another class, the first statement in your constructor must be a call to the constructor of your parent, of the superclass. And how do you do it? You simply write the word super. Super means call the constructor of my parent. And depending upon does it need any parameters or not, I could simply do this and I'll be right because there is an empty constructor, empty parameter constructor in my exception class. There is. So I'm just giving it a call. Constructors, this is how you inherit constructors. You call them. So behind the scenes, every program that you've created till now, all your constructors have a hidden inheritance now, and we don't care, we didn't think about it. But you will be working on inheritance when you come back from your reading break. But this is a very simple form. Keep in mind the first instruction in a constructor should be a call to the constructor of its parent. And who is the parent? Exception. So this is one that will work. And the other that will work is that I take a message, right? I take a message from the user. And that message I take from the user, it will be any message, and I will pass it on to my super. So now what will happen is, if you want to say something like quantity cannot be negative, I'll pass it to this class and it will pass it to its parent, and it already had a constructor that was taking a string, and then we spit it out. So every time now you can give a relevant message to your exception class and it will spit out that message for you. So one exception class can handle as many messages as you like. So you can call it from wherever you like as long as you pass a relevant message. So how did I do that? I'll take the message from the user and then I'll pass it to the exception constructor, and then I'll show you how to spit it out, how to print it. Okay, and you will print it out. So this is my exception class in its easiest form. There is nothing else that is required. All that I require is a constructor. That's it. And all that I require in the constructor is a call to the super constructor, right? And super is a reserved word. Like this is a reserved word for the current object. Super is a reserved word which automatically calls the constructor of the parent class. And since you can only extend from a class in Java, it automatically calls the constructor of the exception class. Any constructor will do. So you could have done it without parameters because there was an empty one. You can do it with a string because there was one. You can do it with a string and a throwable object because there was one. So you can choose any of these 5 constructors in your call, any of these 5. So I did it with this, but I said it's useless because if I don't see an error message, what's the sense? This is the minimum that you will go through always, because you want to show a message. You want to say what went wrong. That's how the user will know what went wrong. Okay, so this is your my exception class in its easiest form. Not much to do at all. See how simple it is. You create a class, say you are extending from exception, put in a constructor, and in the constructor make a call to the super constructor. But you have to know what are the constructors in my super class. And we saw there were 5 of them. This is the one that is commonly used because you always want to show messages, right? This is what the constructor does. So we'll leave it at this. This is the only thing I require. Save it, and then now come back to your product.java. Right, so my exception class is ready. I've just created an exception class that does what? Takes a message from the user, and we will learn how to spit it out. That's the whole purpose of exception classes, to give error messages to the user. Okay, now come back here so that we know. See, now these errors will go. Wherever you've said throws my exception, it will automatically all have gone. I still see a red squiggly. I still see a red something. So what is wrong? I still have some error. In the override? Oh, this one? Oh, what is it saying? Oh, that's why. Okay. So to kind of take care of it, for now, I can say return false. And this will go, right? Because there was no return statement. When you write empty object, like empty methods, you can kind of, so that you don't see errors, you can just say, oh, since it was returning a Boolean, I said return false. If it was returning an int, I would have said return 0. If it was returning a object, I would have said return null, just to make it complete. Though, of course, this will change. Okay, now let's start looking at what I've given you, and hopefully most of you will understand. Everybody knows what the constructor is doing. The constructor is setting the ID, the name, the quantity, and the price for your product. And I have called these set methods everywhere. I don't want to repeat code. The set method will take care of what has to be done and how it has to be done, and all that the constructor does it, do your job, do your job. And that's exactly how I want to see it, unless we do inheritance, and I'll show you how to kind of get around it. But it still remains. You will always use a method that has been written. And what does set do? Set initializes an instance variable with the value that you provided. Why do we need to use sets? Because an object which has some instance variables need to have values for those instant variables. And that's what set method does. It initializes your instance variables. So an object like a person without a name, without a height, without a weight is kind of a useless project, right? Object. But as soon as I say, my name is Anju, my height is this, my weight is this, right? My origin is this, I'm a citizen of this country, it kind of tells you more about me. And that's what we do with set methods. So does every instance variable need a set? No, not necessarily. But when you're creating a product, definitely every product should have an ID, every product should have a name, every product will have a quantity. You'll say, oh, maybe 0 to begin with. Sure, we can set the quantity to 0. Right? It doesn't matter. Maybe you can write another constructor that only takes the ID and the name, sets product, sets the quantity to 0, and sets price to 0. You can do that, right? It will depend upon what do you need to do in your application. So I am saying every time a product is created, it will have a name, it will have an ID, it will have a quantity, and it will have a price. That's what I'm saying, right? So you could have just said quantity is 0 and price is 0 when I initialize a product. Maybe I have not yet decided what, I haven't yet bought it, it's not in my stock, but it will come. So you could take care of it. Okay, so those are the set methods. Now let's look at the set methods one by one, because the get methods are very easy. Get ID is returning the ID, get name the name, get quantity the quantity, and get price. Again, notice how I write it. I say this method returns the identifying number of the product. Return the identifying number of the product. So you can't leave anything empty. You have to have a description. You have to have a complete return statement if you need one. You have to have add params, as many parameters as you want, completely written. Just saying add param and giving the name is 0. You have to tell me what the parameter is, because if I'm going to use the method, I have to know what it means. Every method does it in Java, and you will do it too. So the get methods, I hope nothing that you don't understand in the get methods. It just returns a value. The return type depends upon what is the type of the variable you are returning, and it will not take any parameters. Get methods don't take any parameters because they don't need to. Get is simply asking a question. What's the price? What's the quantity? That's it. And it doesn't need any input from the user. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't say, oh, if you want to know the price, give me 5 bonus marks. You know what I mean? No parameters are needed. So please follow these. Get methods by convention don't take parameters and return the value. So don't give it parameters. If I see that you're not using get methods properly, I'm saying something they don't understand the use of get methods. Does every instance variable need a get method? No. Mine does, because if I want to look for a product, I'll say, oh, what's your price? I want to know the price. So get method. What's your quantity in stock? I need to know the quantity. What's your name? And what's your ID? I need to do everything. If you don't have to, you don't have a get method. So data is hidden. Keep in mind, it is behind a black wall. Anytime you want to talk to it, you will need the set methods to set it or change it, and you will need the get method to look at it. If you decide in your application that it cannot be done, then don't provide those buttons. Don't provide them. There is no set and there is no get, like SIN number of an employee. You set it once in your constructor and then you can never change it, because, and you never show it to anybody because it's really hidden. It shouldn't be shown to anybody and everybody, right? So you decide, do I need setters and getters? Not every instance variable will have it, but mostly that's how kind of they always have it. So gets are clear. There's no big deal in gets. Let's look at now the setting methods. Now the set methods. I'll start with the setting of price so that I can do all my validation and so on. Okay, what is the easiest or what is the most logical that you can think of when you set a price of a product? What validation must you do before you set a price of a product? It should be positive. It could be 0 too, but it is, I mean, 0 will also do, but usually it is not. I mean, it has a price, but it's not an invalid value. Maybe I still don't know how much I'm going to pay the manufacturer for it, so I give it a 0 in my stock to begin with. But it has to be positive or greater than or equal to 0, or if you decide no, it has to be a positive value, it has to be greater than 0. That's the minimum validation. Now, there could be a maximum also. It can go beyond $100. Like somebody makes a typo, so you've kind of said, oh, it can be more than 100. So you can always lay that. But we'll go with the minimum because we don't know what's our range. If it's mouse, it could be a different range. If it's a computer, it could be a different range. If it's a keyboard, it could be a different range. So we don't go to the maximum limit, but the minimum definitely has to be greater than 0. Right? So let's do a check. So notice how it, look at the comments. It says price to set or change. Why do I say set or change? Because set is done once when you create it, and then change is done when you call it. So it is being called from the constructor that's setting it once, and then you change it. So you can use either verb, really doesn't matter. I've said it throws my exception if price is less than or equal to 0. So I'm only saying if it is a positive value, it will be set. How do you say that? All you do is put an if statement. You make a decision-making statement. If the price that is being provided is greater than 0, then I need to set it. Oops, my mistake. Then you need to set it. Right? So you can, if you like, here. So if it is greater than 0, how do you set it? You take the instance variable price and assign it the price that the user has passed to this method. So please keep in mind, this means the instance variable. And if there is no this with it, it kind of looks in its closest shell. And what is closest? This variable called price. So you're basically saying, oh, you gave me this price, I'm going to take it and set it here. 90% of students know how to write the set method. I'm glad. Still 10% are struggling, right? So maybe I'll repeat it for them. Else, now, if that's not the case, no printing in classes, please. I don't want to see system out println. Classes don't print anything. Keep that in mind. Applications do. So if you're writing a card game, which is an application, you could put your printing statements, but otherwise no, right? Okay, else what do I want to do? I want to throw an exception. That's my way of saying, that's the method's way of saying, you know what, something went wrong. I don't know what went wrong, but something went wrong. So what I'm going to do, you don't need an else, because if this doesn't happen, it will automatically come to this statement. I leave it to you. If you want to kind of write else's, it's up to you. If you don't, it's fine, because anyway, if price is greater than 0, well, let's do it the opposite way. It depends on how you want to do it. I can do it this way. That way, I don't need the else at all. I'll take this. I'll take it here and put it here. Here. So if, yeah.
So applications print and classes don't?
Yeah, classes don't print anything.
Okay.
No, there are no system printouts in classes. Classes do, every method in the class will do a job. And if you want to return something, return it. Return it. If you want to return a number, if you want to return a message, if you want to return a Boolean value, return it. No printing in classes. Nowhere. I haven't done it till yet. You don't need to. Because how are you deciding what the user wants to do? All you say is, here is the method. Use it. And if whatever happens, this is what you get back. Okay, so if price is less than 0, what I'm going to return, I'm going to throw an exception. And I'm going to say throw. That's how you throw an exception. Create an exception object. But this time, create an exception object of your class, because you have a custom defined class. And what do you want to say here? What do you want to tell the user? You can be as descriptive as you like and help the user. You will say price cannot be less than 0. you want, you can say the price must be greater than equal to 0. So I'm saying if it is less than or equal to 0, this is, oh, even 0 is not allowed. Or you can say the opposite. You can say if you want the messages to be positive, some people say messages should always be positive. Price should be greater than 0. It's a kind of a, I don't know if you kind of read all these things, but to the user, if you give positive messages, instead of using the word not, if you say something which is positive, the user feels happy about it, right? He says, oh, they're not criticizing me, they're just telling me the right thing. You see, so, but this is just something that's not related to programming, it's just something that users want to see. If you kind of looked at these rules or ideas or recommendations to create user interfaces, that's what they say. Always try to give a positive response to the user. That way the user feels happy about it. But anyway, you could say whatever you like. I've said price should be greater than 0. And if you want to add cannot be less, you can, but that's kind of a too much, but cannot be less than or equal to 0. So common user may not understand that cannot be less than or equal to 0. We understand it because we are programmers. Less than equal to doesn't make sense to a common man. So maybe just saying price should be greater than 0 will make more sense. So that's the message that will be thrown by this method, set price, if your price is less than equal to 0. You say, what do you mean thrown? Exception objects are thrown in the sense that this message is kind of returned. Though see, it doesn't have a return type. The return type is void. But that's why we use throws my exception. They're kind of returned to whoever is calling this method with this message. Now, what does that person, that user do with the message? We will learn to use that. But this method says, this is my contract with you. If you give me a value greater than 0, I will set it. If you give me a value less than or equal to 0, here's your answer. It can be 0. So throws is like a return, but it is not return, it's different, right? It just says, this is what I give back to you if you try to mess with me. And what does it give back? An exception object. Notice how I've said throw new my exception. So I'm creating an exception object. Of what type? My exception. It needed a message from me. Remember, it needed a message from me. So I've passed it a message. And then it will call its super constructor, which is the exception, and pass back the message. We'll see what it does. I'll show you what it does. And now you don't need an else here, because if this doesn't happen, automatically it will come to this statement. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to set the price. So you can put an else if you like, but you don't have to. Because throw just kind of means stop right here. That's what throw means. Return and stop. So keep that in mind. So you don't need an else. Because if there is a problem, it will stop. Stop in the sense this method will stop executing. Okay, so that makes sense. Can you do the same for the ID is not a big deal. The ID is just identifying it. The name is not a big deal because name is just assigning it. Do something similar here. What do you want to do with quantity? The minimum. The quantity in stock cannot be negative. You cannot store a product in -2 items. Doesn't make sense. It has always to be a positive value. It could be 0. Quantity could be 0. But we'll take care of reordering level, but quantity could be 0 and it's not in stock. Sometimes you go to a store and you say, oh, I need this, and they say, sorry, it's not in stock. So it could be 0, but it is never negative. So we'll do the same kind of check. We'll say if the quantity you provide me is less than 0. So whatever, oh, I've done an equal here. So you can decide. I think in the comments I wrote equal. I don't know. I mean, it's either way. You just have to, because 0 is not an invalid value in a sense. So I'll make it less than 0. You could be out of stock of something. It's not a big deal. So if quantity is less than 0, we kind of copy this, cheat it, and change the message. I'm going to put this message here. And of course, I don't want to say price should be greater than 0. We'll say quantity. So here, I have to do here. So I've just changed the message. So quantity should be greater than or equal to 0, cannot be less than 0. So the same thing, same logic. So this set quantity method says, this is my contract with you. Give me a positive or a 0 value and I'll use it. And how does it use it? It will use it like this. It takes it from you It takes it from you and sets the quantity of the class variable, instance variable, sorry, not class variable, of the instance variable. That's the contract. Give me a wrong value and I'll say, here, can do it for you. And if you give me a right value, I'll use it. Again, else is not required. Avoid else, please, because it's not required. Logically, it is not. Because throw kind of returns or goes back to whoever has called them. Whoever. It could be from anywhere. But this method will always return its control, you could say, to from wherever it was called if the quantity is less than 0. So please see that you change this comment because I said 0 was valid. Again, it will depend. I just thought 0 was not a bad thing to use. Quantity can be 0. So if it is less than 0, throw an exception, else use it. That's my set quantity method. So I'm now using, instead of the exception class that you used before, which was just like, because you didn't have to do anything, you can create your own exception classes. So my set methods are ready. All my setters and getters are ready. Now, my toString method. What do I need to return? I need to return the name of the product, the ID of the product, the quantity in stock, and the price. So notice, write a normal English sentence. If you want to show it in one per line, that's up to you. But see that you have \n in between. This message will be printed on screen. That's the main use of the toString method. It returns you information about the object, and usually 90% times you will be spitting it on the screen for the world to see, for the user. So the user has the information. So make it clean, neat, grammatically correct, please, right? And if you're not sure, if your English is a little weak, then start using Word maybe, or start using Grammarly, something that will help you to make messages. I've been okay in my first assignment. I've said, you know what, they should be grammatically correct, and I haven't docked off marks. But in future, I will. Like, you have to know how to write messages. You can't just say something that is incorrect and the user doesn't understand what are you trying to say. So they have to be grammatically correct, one, and they should make sense. That what is the user trying to tell me? So notice how I have said. I've given an ID here, which was a get ID is a string. So I've used %s. Most of you knew how to use it. It was not a big deal, but many of you are writing %.2f for a name of a person. Won't work. Everything has its own format. By this time you should know. Then I have said there are or is, doesn't matter. %d, get quantity is an integer. Of what? Of this product, I give its name. In stock, priced at, what is the price? $sign will have to be printed, and %.2f says 2 places after the decimal. I haven't said how many do I need before the decimal. You can say, what will happen with this? It will leave a blank. Why a blank? Because I've left a blank here. So don't go like this. I mean, it's just a message. Don't go like this. You want to leave a blank after that, the $sign, and then don't leave a blank after this. Don't do this. Anything that you print will be printed. I want to see the $sign and then the price of the commodity or the product right there without any blanks. So I've said %.2f. So it will exactly take what it needs, but will only show 2 places after this. And we do that in all prices because remember, monetary values are always 2 places after this. But that doesn't mean it's a rule for every floating number or every decimal number. You could be saying show me 3 places after decimal. You could be saying show me 4, show me 1, show me 0. It could be anything. Just because we've been using money, salary was money, and so is price, I'm saying %2f. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing that is available, right? You could just say %f, and whatever your answer is, it will come up. If it is an integer, it will show an integer. If it is 1 place after decimal, that's what it will show. Whatever is the value, it will spit it. This is formatting it, making it neat, because that's what you want. So look at the toString method. It gives a message back showing all the information of the product. And notice how I use the get methods in my toString. It's kind of almost a convention to use get methods in toString. It is an overkill. Get ID, you're still in the same class definition. Get ID is, you could use ID there, but I use it in my toStrings always because it makes more sense to me. I'm trying to get the information and show it. And the retrieval is always done with get methods. You could say this dot get ID if you really want to go overkill, but it's not required, right? So you're saying call the method get ID from this class. Some people even find that that's an overkill. They say, why can't we just write ID? I prefer it in toString. I don't use it anywhere else, but I leave it to you. I would like to see you using gets in your toString methods. That's a good habit to inculcate. Okay, now let's look at the next method and you help me with it. Anything that's not clear till what we've done. So we've learned how to write the constructor. We've learned how to write all the setters. We've learned to write all the getters. And we've learned how to write toString, which you've done before. The extra thing, the little extra, not much extra, is we've caught exceptions, not caught. We have thrown exceptions, not of the generic exception class, but of a custom built myException class, right? So now if I just want, let me just show it to you. It's not yet complete, but that's okay. We don't see any red squigglies. I'm going to take this. I'm going to make a copy of it. I'll open up my BlueJ. How many of you downloaded BlueJ after I showed you in class? Anybody who's downloaded it and worked with it?
I didn't download it. I was following along with the code.
Okay, it's just an easy way of doing things quickly. I have a class ready. I want to test it. This is what I'll do. I'll create a new class here. I'll call it product. Of course, you would be putting it in the right package or whatever, but I'm not bothering because I'm just testing it. It's just a quicker way of testing it. Okay, I'll do a Control A and V. And I've just copied everything from that product class. And I'll remove my package statement because it's just a standalone, and I'll compile it. And if everything go, okay, so we'll need the myException, of course. How silly is that? So go back to your BlueJ, go to myException, Control AC, go back to BlueJ, create another class, call it myException, and put the code of myException into this class and remove the package statement. If there is, oops, if there is any, there, that looks neat. Do a Control S, do a compile. What did I do? Oh, didn't remove their code. Okay, there it is. I thought I did a Control A, but that's okay if I haven't done it. Now everything okay? Extra bracket? Yep, an extra bracket. That's what happens when you copy and cheat. There is a saying in our language which says even to cheat, you have to be smart, right? So you can't just copy and paste and see that it doesn't work. So copy from my code. Nobody stops you, but copy what you need. Don't copy irrelevant code. That's okay now. Let's again compile this class. Okay, so that's ready. We don't need it, so I'll close it. And now I can compile my product class. And it should compile clean. It has compiled clean. Now let me create a product. So as soon as you see those lines go, it means it has compiled successfully, right? Now let's create a product. That's how you test whether it is working. So now I'm going to do a few things. The ID has to be a number. Oh, no, it was a string, sorry. So I'll go with 1. Oops, name of the instance. Okay, product 1. Wrong place, product 1. You can call it anything. Okay, so 1. I didn't do any check in it. As long as it is a string, it will work. Name of the product. Keyboard. I didn't do any check in this, so as long as it is text, it will work. Now, what about quantity? We said if the quantity is 0 or less, it should throw an exception. So let's try -1. Of course, we know it's not valid, right? But that's the whole thing about throwing my exceptions. I want the system to catch this exception and not create the object. That's the whole concept. So I've called the constructor. The constructor is calling the set quantity or the set price method. That's doing a check. It says, oh, something went wrong. It throws an exception. That exception is thrown back to the constructor, and the constructor throws it back to me because I'm creating the object. So therefore, you have those throws. So you have a throws in the set method. Who is it throwing back to? Constructor, because constructor called it. Who is the constructor throwing it to? Me, because I called it. So that's how exceptions are thrown to whoever is calling that method. So set method throws, constructor gets it because constructor had called it. Constructor says, I don't know what to do with it, and it throws it to me. And so it's my job now to handle it. I haven't told you how to handle it, but I'll show you in a minute. Now I'm going to give a price which is okay. So $10 is not a bad, like it's fine, and I'll do an okay. This object must not be created. And it is not created. If you go back to BlueJ, do you see any object created here in your bench? No, it never got created. But what was the error you got? This is the error you got. And notice the message that has been thrown back to you. Quantity should be greater than or equal to 0, cannot be less than 0. That's an appropriate message for any user to understand. So I said, oh, that's a mistake I made. Makes sense to me. right? So that message, so that's what you've done. You've created a custom built message for the user which makes sense to the user. It's making complete sense. Since you don't get such kind of messages in the Java class library, you'll get something like number cannot be 0. You could get something like parameter is illegal. Those messages still are available. But there is no message which will say quantity cannot be less than 0. It's a very custom built message. It's something that my application needs. So I created my own exception. And I created my own message. And I can use that exception class for everything. Or nothing stops you. You could create a product exception class. You would create a stock exception class. You could create as many exception classes as you wanted, and your messages are bound to products or stock or inventory or whatever. It's just simple for them. And that's what happens. The object never gets created, but you see that message on the screen. So now BlueJ is making it pretty for me. Of course, if I try to do this in my own NetBeans, that's, you won't have BlueJ. The user won't have BlueJ. To the user, you will give your main tester. So let's write a tester for it so that you can see what happens. So let's go, if you want to, you can kind of rename your .java with the main. I'm going to rename it. Or I can leave it, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not a bad name. Product stock Tuesday is not a best name, but at least I'll just spell it right. So my Tuesday spelling was wrong, okay? That's what I'm doing, that's all I'm doing. You can call it test product. You can call it test product, and that's what you want to do. Here, let's call it test product stock. Ultimately, stocks will also be, and say refactor.
So this is optional.
The name changing is optional, but again, good names always make sense, right? So I've called it test product and stock. Open it up, and it will have a main, right? Let's put things in main. What do you want to do? Of your product class, you want to create product 1. You can call it anything, or you can want to create whatever you like. And you want to go exactly what we did. New product. What was the first parameter it needed? An ID. The second one, the description or the name. The third one, the quantity. And the fourth one, the price. Yes. Oh, keyboards are not that cheap. Yeah.
When we were renaming it, did we check mark the box that says apply rename on comments?
No, I didn't, because I don't want to change. I didn't write any comments that had its name. Okay. And remember, when you are going to give a literal that is float, please remember to put an F with it. You need a float, not a double. If you try to put it without an F, you will have a problem. It will give you a syntax error. And if you bring your mouse over it, it will say incompatible types. You will say, but 100.5 is a float. It's not a float. It's a double value. So to make it float, what do? You can either cast it or you can just put an F with it. So you should know how to pass floating point numbers. If you're reading it from the user, integers are casted by using integer.parseInt. Floats, float.parseFloat. Doubles, double.parseDouble. Again, cheated, but not changed. So you took my parseInt statement and you never changed it. Salary was a double number in employees. It won't work. Right? So as I said, pay attention. You have enough time to do it. So please do things properly so that you don't lose marks. Many people did well. I must appreciate that it was done well. The assignment was done well. What doesn't it like? Bring your mouse over it again. Unreported exception. Okay, now see, now NetBeans is kind of not even letting me go forward. It says this constructor throws an exception. What are you going to do about it? Notice my error. It says unreported exception, my exception must be caught. Either catch it. You'll say, what do you mean by catch? In a minute, I'll tell you what it means to be catch. Or it says throw it again. So the easiest way is I'm going to say throws it. So my method gets it and it will throw it further. It says, I don't care. You have to do something about the exception. You'll say, where is it? Remember, the constructor is throwing an exception. So NetBeans didn't even let you like compile your code. It said, this method throws an exception. What are you going to do about it? So what are you means the user? The application. Main, remember, main is the application. It says, what are you going to do about it? You said, oh, I'm lazy. I'm going to throw it also. So what did you add to your signatures? You said it throws it further. So throw it. Nobody is taking responsibility. The method threw it. The constructor threw it further. Main got it. Main said, I'm not going to take care of it. And it will throw it further. Who the poor fellow will get it at the end? The runtime unit. Right? He can do nothing about it. So it will just print out an error message on this. But the printing is not so neat is what I want to show you. And then you'll see how do I make the printing, how do I handle it, right? But if nobody wants to take responsibility, the poor JVM will take the responsibility at the end. So if you want, we'll kind of do this afterwards. I'll do all these things afterwards, but I want to show you what happens now. So when I run this code, an exception will be thrown because my quantity is -1. And when that exception is thrown, this is what you see. You will say, oh, how is that neat for a user? Absolutely not neat. Because what is it saying? It is saying there was an error in main. It did give you a message. Quantity should be greater. But then there were more messages. There's a whole stack. This is what happens. When you get an error, a stack kind of comes back. The error came from here. Oh, it came from here. Oh, it came from here. No user wants to see that. Who wants to see that? Not a common user. Right? So now comes the question, how do I handle it? So notice at the end of the day, the message came on the screen, but it was not neat and clean still. But main didn't take responsibility. Main said, I'm not doing it. It's not my job. Of course it is your job. Main is the application. The application's job is to handle the exceptions. It can't say, oh, I don't want to handle it, JVM, you handle it. Can be done. So when you write an application, so whoever has written this application, it's his or her job to take care of the exception. And how do you take it? It's as easy as this. Now, till now, so comment this out and try to now handle it yourself. And the handling of exceptions is done like this. I'll give you a break in 10 minutes. Don't worry. Okay. I know you need it, but give me. Put whatever you're trying to do in a try block. Have you heard of try catch blocks? So what is try catch? Try catch simply says, I'll try to catch this exception for you. Okay, so this is how it is written. Whatever statement or statements you want to execute, you put it in a try block. This is your try block. So if everything went well, maybe after this you wanted to do whatever. So the rest of these statements will come in your try block. So if everything goes well, you want to do the rest of the statements. Who knows what's the rest yet, but the rest of the statements. Right? If anything goes wrong, as soon as anything goes wrong in a particular call, whether it's a call to the set statement, whether it's called to the constructor, whatever method you're trying to call, and that method is throwing an exception, as soon as something goes wrong, it will jump straight to the catch block. And you'll say, what am I trying to catch? You'll say, I'm trying to catch anything that is of type my exception. We'll call it E. Anything that's of my type exception. You could, that means, can you catch other kind of exceptions? Sure. You could have as many catches as you like with a try. You'll say, catch my exception, catch arithmetic exception, catch illegal exception, illegal argument, catch cast exception. So any kind of exceptions that are occurring in your code, you could be giving a different message for it. And that's exactly what we want. Relevant messages, right? Otherwise, what's the sense of catching exceptions if I don't see messages? So I only have one kind of exception being thrown by the constructor. It's called my exception. So I catch it. You could, if you like, you could say it doesn't matter what kind of exception it is, because exception is the father of all exception classes. Everything will be caught, but you'll have the same message. That's not what you want. So when you start writing catch blocks, you kind of say, catch this, do this, catch this, do this, catch this, do this. And you have to put it in a particular sequence from smaller to bigger. Smaller to bigger means parents come at the end and children come before. Because children are smaller than the parents, they should take care of smaller errors first. And if nobody is taking care of it, then the exception class will take care of it. So notice what I can do. I can put a my exception catch here, and I can put just to be on the safe side. I don't know what other kind of exception can occur. I can put another catch block here. And instead of catching my exception, I'll catch a exception, any exception. So we'll call it E1, though it's not a good name, and I'll call it E2. So a try can have as many number of catch blocks as you need or are necessary for your code. Okay. So I'm going to do what is it? Control-Shift-F for formatting. No, it's not. Alt-Shift-F. Thank you. Okay, there, just so that it is neat. This is called a try catch block. So one try only and as many catches as you need. I don't like this format. I'm going to put it in a different line, guys. See, it's local, so I don't know. Maybe local variables can have, they are local, right? This E is local to this catch. This E is, you can give it the same name, doesn't matter. But of course, these classes are different. My exception is a child of exception. It comes first and then exception comes. If you try to take this catch block for whatever reason, because you've forgotten how to do it, and you put it afterwards, it should come up with something saying unreachable code. See, there it is. It says it has already been caught. You say, I can catch it. Your exception has caught it, because remember, exception is the father of all exceptions. So therefore, these catches have to be written in a certain order. And it's kind of simple to understand what is the order. The order is smallest to biggest. So anything that's a child comes first and the parents go afterwards. Because I know exception is the parent of every exception I could do. So if you wanted to catch something like illegal argument exception, though you will never get it, but I mean, because I'm not doing it, but you could have added another catch here. And let's say you wanted to catch an arithmetic exception. Oh, why didn't it help me? I thought controls. Oh, I keep forgetting that I have to do an enter, right? Not a tab. And then you could call it E. And here you could have another catch. Oops, there, that's wrong. And that's the end. And see here, you can add as many catches as you want. So as a programmer who is writing the application, the person will take care that every kind of exception is found. Of course, you just can't keep adding exceptions, because if your code is not throwing, you're not expected to throw it, then why would you write it? But it's a good practice to put the last catch. You cannot think of what can happen, but you say if anything happens, at least it will be found. So it's always a good habit to have a catch exception at the end of all your catches. You're on the safe side. I'm just showing you that you can have as many catches as you want. For me, this is the most important one. What do you want to do? So an error message, the exception object is coming back to you. It has a message, and all you want to do is print that message. And all you do for that is, if I can remember from, it's different how you do it in different and E is your object that is getting back dot, I think it's get message or message. Get message. It's a little different in different, no, there it is, get message. Here. And now you will see what will happen. So what am I saying? Kind of talk it in English. You're trying to create a product object. So you called it constructor. You passed an invalid value of -1 for the quantity. So the constructor is called, it calls the set quantity method. The set quantity method tries to set it. It's a negative value, can't set it, throws back that exception which says quantity cannot be negative, goes back to the constructor, comes to the main, and the main has handled it. This is called handling. It didn't throw it further to the JVM, to the Java runtime unit. It handled it. And this is how you handle exceptions. You give a you print out that message. You'll see the difference between what we were seeing before, what we are seeing in the output window now, and then what will happen after I make this change. So the rest of these are kind of useless for me, but you know what? I'll just keep them so that you know that you could have a whole hierarchy of catches. And also, just so that you know, a try catch block can have a finally also. And what is this? Oops, what is this finally? As a word suggests, finally means I always want you to do this. So this is basically, this is catch my exception. If you want to kind of not get lost in your catches, it's always a good habit. This is the end of catch of arithmetic exception. You can write it short, AE. And this is the end of your exception. Though again, never be lazy is what I say. Once you have it, you can always copy and paste. And then finally, keep in mind, this will always happen. You will say, what is the meaning of always? In a minute, I'll explain. Okay, let me explain what this is always executed. So let's look at it together in the sense all in one go. Notice, try is trying to do something. It's trying to call a method. If a problem occurs, it will go to the corresponding catch. What kind of problem? Problem with my exception, you've thrown a my exception. Problem, an arithmetic exception was thrown. Any exception was thrown. So it will kind of go in sequence. If the first one satisfied, it won't check the others because it's been caught. It was not a my exception. It was not an arithmetic exception. Exception will catch it, and whatever you want to do, system out println, whatever you like. Okay. And then, irrespective of whether an error occurred, that means one of you had whatever problem was there in the try, or the other case is nothing happened. The product was created. So no error occurred. The -1 was a 1 and everything went fine. The finally block will always be executed. You will say, what is the use of this finally block? You will put in those statements in the finally block which you always want to do, irrespective of whether it occurred or it didn't occur. There was an exception, there wasn't an exception. And it is very handy when you're dealing with files or database connections, because you want to close your files or you want to close your database connections. That's when it will be handy. But that's the try catch block in its complete eternity. You have a try, you can have one or more than one catches in the right order, and then you have one find. Try is trying to do something. If everything goes fine, it will go from try to finally and out. It's done. If an exception is thrown by any statement in the try, it will go to its corresponding catch block, do what you tell it to do, and then we'll go to finally, and then it is out of the try catch block. This is called a try catch finally block. In its whole eternity, that's what it is, looks like. Do you always need a finally? No. You may work without it. Do you always need one catch? Yes. More than one catches? No. Yes, we will. Bring your mouse to one by one. Bring it to the first one. What is it? Illegal start of type. Okay, so illegal start of type because you don't have a try. Where is your word try? The try is missing. Right? So the try was missing, and therefore anytime it's, no, this one doesn't go in here. This one goes, you're trying to do this. You're trying to do this, right? So trying to do this. So this is what you oh, they already have it. Okay, so you were missing this. Right? So notice how you have a try. Please notice you have a try, which is, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to do? So that all your code will be in a sense in the try, because that's what I'm trying to do. Anytime you have a problem, it will choose one of these and do what you tell it to do. Now, these two are not doing anything, but you could always say, I mean, I'm just kind of doing it. You could just take the message and put it on the screen. Arithmetic exception has its own inbuilt message. So the message, whatever it will be, it will come up. And I'll show you how it works. And this one again has its own inbuilt message, which may not be very neat, but there it is. You can just print out the e dot message. You can also actually do another thing in Java. When you, before giving it out to the market, you can say, oh, where is the problem occurring? Where is it occurring? You can always print a stack trace of your errors. That is helpful when you are programming it. But once you're satisfied, then to the user, you only want to show new things. Let's try this. Let's see what happens. And how is it different from what was happening before? This was what was happening before. All those red, it is a whole trace of my errors. A common user cannot understand it. Let's see what now happens. So we'll run it. And my quantity is negative. Please notice my quantity is negative. It should throw an exception from the set quantity method. We'll go to the constructor. We'll come back here. Main is handling it. How is it handling it? It's catching it. What is it doing in the catching? It's going to print that message on the screen. Let's do it. And this is your output. Much neater. Exactly what the user sees. Makes sense to the user. See, from where is that message coming? -1. Set quantity. Set quantity sends it to the constructor. The constructor sends it to the main. And the main said, I will handle it. So it tried and caught it. And it handled it. How did it handle it? Print out the message on the screen. See how neat is that? So I've handled, the main has handled it, and that's exactly what you have to do. You have to handle exceptions. You can say, oh, I don't want to do it. Let JVM do it. The whole concept of exceptions is gone. Right? Now change your quantity to 1. Let's give it a valid value. No exception is thrown. Everything is okay. ID is a string. Name is a string. Quantity is an integer. And number is okay. Everything is okay. Your product will be created. And you will also see this finally message. Okay, so let's put some message here. let's say system out println done. Though that's not what you will usually put, but this is to show you that this will always happen. Okay, so let me show you it always happens. There. Let me show you that it happens on error and without error. So I'll put it -1 again, guys, just to show you. So I put it back to -1. I save it. I run it. Notice the word done. The done is coming from the finally block. So you see the error from the catch and you see the done. So finally block is always executed. Keep that in mind. And the use of it is more with when you deal with files and databases. Okay, now let's change this -1 to 1. What are we expecting? An object will be created, right? Do you want to show that product? Remember we have a string method, toString. Let's do it. What was it? A println and just say product1. This will prove to you that the product was created. So it should be created. Is everything valid? Is 1 a valid ID? Yes. Keyboard a valid name? Yes. 1 a valid quantity? Yes. 100.50 a valid number for float? Yes. So let's try. Notice there is 1 of keyboard in stock priced at $100. And the word done is still there because done, the finally will always happen. No exception was thrown. The catch blocks were kind of ignored. It did its job in the try. Everything went well. Try's finish comes. And then it goes to finally, and then it comes out of the. That's how you handle exceptions. That's how you handle exceptions. Make sense? Is it making sense how to handle exceptions? Are you getting the idea? Right? So don't let main say, I'm not going to take care of it and I'm going to throw it further, which we did when we started. I said, oh, it throws it further. I want you to handle exceptions. That's the whole part of creating exception classes and giving proper messages. Let's make our float negative. What are you expecting? An exception problem from here. Run it. Now you must see an error. Price should be greater than 0. So it's a different message. Makes more sense. You'll say, what if I make both negative? Keep in mind, you can make quantity negative and price negative, but which will be caught first? The quantity, because it's before parameter, and it will stop there. It won't even go to price. You can see all messages together because it stops as soon as it encounters a problem. It says, I can't go further. So you could have more than 1 invalid values. It will stop at the first invalid value and you will see that error. So now it is talking about price being problem and it is still saying done. Why? Because done is in the finally. It will always happen. Always. It will always happen. So if both are causing problems, quantity is also negative and price is also negative, it will stop at quantity. There. You'll say, oh, I didn't get all error message. How will you get all error messages? You made a mistake on quantity. It doesn't even go further. It stops at the set quantity method. So remember, you had set ID, you had set name, and then you had set quantity, and then you had set price. So as soon as you say set quantity, it says, oops, something went wrong. So it won't even check price. What we will. Copy code? Okay. That means different, yeah, it shouldn't happen. That means you haven't done some checks in your price. That means you haven't completed the product class. Yeah, so your problem is not here. This error is coming from, so that means your float is not being checked, right? So you go to your product class and look at your price. And you've said if price is greater than 0, throw it, which is wrong. If you tell me, when is it a problem? Setting a positive value is a problem or setting a negative value is a problem? So the condition is wrong. And it's exactly saying what you told it to do. Guys, the answer is not incorrect because the answer is incorrect because the program is not working properly. The program is not working properly because you didn't code it properly. It's always your fault. Keep that in mind. It's always your fault. Or I will say it's always my fault. Whoever it is, it's always the programmer's fault. So you can't say, I don't know why it's not happening. You have to know why it's happening because you coded it. So it's your mistake. The programmer's, not yours as personally yours. It's the programmer's mistake. So look for where the logical problem is. Okay? Okay, so now it stops at quantity and keep in mind, as soon as it encounters an exception, it will stop, right? It can't go further. So you'll say, oh, why didn't it show both messages? It can't. It won't. Right? Now, if everything is okay, we've already tested it. If everything is okay, it works perfectly fine and everything looks good and nice. Now, let me try to do this. Let me try to create an arithmetic exception. When does an arithmetic exception occur, guys? Any idea? An easy one. When does an arithmetic exception occur? Do you think this will cause an arithmetic exception? Do you think this will cause an exception? 2 divided by 0. It will. It won't in floats, but it will in integers. Integer division is a problem. Right? Now, this has already been taken care by the system. I don't have any problems in my product. This will be created. It will spit out the product one information, but then it will say, oops, I can't do that. Now, if you hadn't handled it, so I have given a message. Now, if you don't handle it, it goes to the JVM and the JVM will put that message on the screen. Now it will just look more pretty. It just looks more presentable. Okay. So this should call as an exception. So let's see. Let's try this. So your object will get created. Keep that in mind. Do you see this error? Division by 0? It's coming from the arithmetic exception. So you've handled it. If you hadn't handled it, for example, if you hadn't handled it, so let me kind of exclude it. I don't handle it. And you haven't till now, which is okay. Right? Now let's see what happens. So you have made a problem. You've created an exception. You've created one exception. Main is not handling it. But since this is an exception that JVM knows how to handle, let's see how it handles it. That's how it handles it. Just not neatly and gracefully. What does it say? So this is your message. There is one of keyboard instructions. So how is that coming? I have a problem. But remember, the problem occurred after you created the product and spit it out. Where is the problem coming? The problem is coming here. What is it throwing? Arithmetic exception. What is the inbuilt message for this exception in the Java library? Division by 0. And it spits it out. What I did was I handled it. The main handled it. How did it handle it? It said, okay, I'll catch it and I'll show you the message. So instead of seeing this untidy message, you will just see a graceful message. And that's the whole purpose of handling exceptions, that you give good, proper messages to the user. And that's what is important. You don't want to see this, right? But you're okay to see this because it is making sense. And nobody says that's all you can do. Nobody says, oh, that's all I can do, print the message. You can do whatever you like. You can make it as pretty as you like. This is just a block of code. You could say, this is the problem, division by 0 or whatever, like whatever you like. Right? So the division by 0 was it's the in message. It already has it. Anytime you will have an arithmetic exception, anytime, it will always give this message. It will kind of figure out what it is, division by 0, and it will say. There could be others. I don't know what else occurs in arithmetic exception, but of course I know this one because it's so common. Right? So now if you handle it, the message is prettier. And handle it, let's handle it. So it's prettier. The message will still come. It's just pretty. It's just neater. So this is called graceful termination. The program has terminated gracefully. Right? That's what it is called. Whereas in the first one, it was not graceful at all because the output was so unhappy. This is called handling of exception. So you've learned how to create a custom built exception class. You've learned how to handle it. Okay. And then as I said, then you kind of can play with it. So we'll take a break here. Thank you for your patience. We'll take a break here. Come back in 20 minutes and then I'll kind of write more code in the product class. We are still writing more code in the product class. Yes, sir.
It says with exception handling class.
It's
When I go to run, it says I don't have a main class.
Okay, let's try to do it. Let's see. So, oh, because you've said throws. Oh, okay, comment that out. We don't need the throws, my exception here. When you say throws, it says I'm not handling it. Here you're saying I'm not handling it, and here you're saying I'm handling it. Right? Okay, so take that bracket and put it in this one, the curly bracket. That also got complicated. Okay, so there are two ways. Either you throw it further and don't handle it, or you handle it. So this is, you're trying to handle it. So you try, handle it, catch, and use it. What is it saying now? It has already been. Can you save it and it still give that problem? This is coming after the law. Static void name, opening of name, try inside, catch. No clue why it shouldn't be saying that.
Like I have the same thing as you guys, and it just doesn't work on my computer.
That's strange. Because arithmetic exception is not a child of my exception. My exception is a child of exception. So you're like, are you using the latest version of Java and the NetBeans? And anyway, exceptions were always there from 1.0. Does it make sense? The error doesn't make sense at all. It does say that. Bring your mouse again. Exception had already been. Okay, let's do an alt enter to see what hints it is given. Catch cross. Okay, it says surround with every fold, deep or collapse inside. No, that's not what it says. Really? Doesn't make sense at all. No, because it is not being handled, like it's not. Okay, just try to remove the arithmetic exception code. Just comment that out. Leave the catch exception. Okay, you will get the same problem. And then you need a and everywhere. That's why I said block commenting. Even the middle one, the whole catch.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the whole catch. It still says the same in catch.
Like anything after
Yeah,
the
I
first
say
one.
yeah, and that doesn't make sense. Wrong with the opening closing brackets. Do you have the my exception class? Can I look at your my exception or Java? Not at all. That will absolutely fine. Okay, let's look at product here. Maybe there you've set throws exception instead of throws my exception. Okay, so to the set methods. Okay, so one by one. Constructor is throwing my exception. Okay, so come to these setters of your quantity and the price. And it's giving a problem here also. What is it saying with the throws? Throwable clause. What? It doesn't make. Okay, let's look at spellings. My exception. Exception. Okay, so that's okay, but it's not recognizing it. So something is wrong somewhere for sure. Through new my exception. Okay, let's look at the price one, the quantity one. See, it doesn't like the comment even. It doesn't recognize my exception. What is that? Through new my exception. That's right. But notice how it's giving you a warning. It doesn't recognize it. Is my exception and product the same? Yeah, it is. Exception. Strange. If quantity is less than 0, throw this exception. Throw new my exception. Okay, let's go back again one by one at a time. My exception. Okay, go up. My exception. Okay, let's go up to the constructor. It's not recognizing it. It doesn't recognize my exception at all. Okay, let's do it. Let's go to run and do team build. And it should be clean and build project. Nope. Oh. There it is. The following error occurred with executing this line. Compile failed. Oh, it's not even compiling. It's running something from your desktop from week 4 product stock. And that's what it is? Yeah, it is. You are running the right.
file.
Let's see what is it saying. Error, cannot find symbol. Cannot find any exception. There has to be something. Can't be magic. Let's go up a little more. It doesn't recognize my exception.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay, so let's come to my exception. Something has to be wrong somewhere. You're not seeing it properly. There it is. Your package is called product stock with a small s and maybe have a capital S.
And that's just blew it out.
Because it didn't find my exception. My exception was in that package. So it didn't find it. You didn't import that package, did you? No. So it didn't find my exception. It doesn't recognize it anyway. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You said my package is called product stock with a capital S.
Yeah.
Java is case sensitive. It's somewhere else. It's not in your package and you're using it. So it says, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me quickly have, yes.
The in-class assignment, I gave my file wrong, and I got 0 to 50.
No. Which one? First assignment?
Yeah, in-class assignment 1, I named it Java in-class assignment, I forgot the underscore in my name.
No. It's not that. Then something else is going on. I remember marking your assignment.
Just, I don't know if it's.
Yeah, no, it's,
displaying
no.
wrong,
Oh,
on
I
my-
want to give you a 0 for that. Don't
but,
worry.
yeah, on my blackboard, it says 0 out of 50. I was just heavily concerned.
Of course you are. Either I missed something. Something must have happened.
Okay.
No, it's
So as
not.
long as I.
Oh, I mean, I said please name it properly, but
which
it can
makes
be a
sense,
0.
Of course, but
Yeah, let's see what went wrong. Something went wrong for sure. So last name Cheston?
Marshallman?
M?
Yeah.
MNO, sorry. Where are you? More up?
Yeah, right.
There you are. That is strange. What happened? Something happened. So you see my comments.
Yep.
You know what? Something happened. That's, no, there it is. Oh, I have no clue why there is a 0 here. Okay, so
Okay.
maybe I had to take off something and then, and no, do I see comments? Sometimes I don't like to take off a lot of marks. So I've been lenient this time.
Okay.
Does nothing, you have to set the values. Okay, so that's sick. Sometimes when I have, I think taking off 1.5 is too much. My heart kind of is a little soft, so I don't. The set method should have void return type. Oh yeah, this I brought this to your notice. Please read this properly.
Okay.
I haven't docked marks, but it's not the right way of doing it.
Yeah. The only comments I can see right now, though, are just the naming.
Naming ones, yeah, because please use, it's a good practice. Okay, so that's okay. Sometimes have proper tiles, it could be better. Feedback, why would you call the get method twice if you need? Okay, so that's fine. Please use complete messages and show salary, name and salary together. That's what I was talking about doing this right now. Okay, so sometimes when I am kind of a little lenient, I give extra marks or dock of less marks or whatever. So
Yeah.
now I should say save. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is coming for
Okay.
the everybody. Everybody's seeing it. Oops,
Okay.
sorry, didn't realize
Not
it.
bad.
Okay, now you can go and read that.
Great,
Oops,
thank you.
sorry about that. Didn't realize it was on there. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Some typo, and then because I gave it a 0, I overrode it. So instead of giving the original grade, it gave a 0. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, but now you can read your comments and see what it is. Yes, Amanda. It was not due till Sunday since Friday last when I posted.
Okay, I thought you did this Friday.
Yeah, no. I said, but people were still pairing up till midnight Friday, so I thought, let's be fair.
So this Sunday, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but double check on Blackboard, please. Please. I always say that because I can never remember.
What the 1500?
You visualize it? Yeah. Like that? Oh, what? चार ही होते हैं तीन होते हैं दो जोकर होते हैं खाली हमें एक ही जोकर चाहिए चार जोकर नहीं चाहिए होते नहीं सब हमें एक ही चाहिए कितने मर्जी होते हैं जोकर की चार के साथ भी कर सकते हैं हमें एक ही करना है एक के साथ
You recommend it?
Yeah. मेरा दोस्त अगर
How much time do we have left on our break? I was wondering if we wanted to talk about a 7 hour or wait until after class. Yeah, so basically, I go to the document that I opened it up. I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to create any enemies or have any problems with that.
You said float division by 0 doesn't work with the
It will give you an answer of not a number or something.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just the Java thing. They're very
Logically,
simple. Logically, right? But they say something like this. Did you try it? Oh, am I wrong?
I have another question. What is the difference between illegal state argument, not illegal argument, and illegal state?
Yeah, there are two different errors. One is the state of the object, I think. I know about illegal argument. When you try to suppose a method is expecting a object from you, and it wants something, and you're passing it null. Which is a valid.
I saw in the programs, they usually use state, like.
There's another one. You just have to look up what is the use of each one of them.
I checked it in the Oracle data, this thing, but
Didn't make a lot of sense.
It's very vague. Like, it's
Okay,
just
I
like,
can read it for you because I haven't read it for a while, so I can read it and see if it makes more sense to me.
yeah, it just says that when timing is not right, but like what kind of timing? Like, what
Okay,
is
now
it?
sometimes it is some errors, so you will have to see what is it inheriting from. Some kind of exceptions are bound to the system. It's not due to our code. It is something wrong with the system, like something in operating system or something that is not under our control at all. It's not our code. Those exceptions are thrown in. So maybe it's that kind of exception. So exceptions come in two classes: related to code, related to system resources. And it could be something that is related to system resources. But what does it mean? I can't remember off my head. I'll have to
I
read
was
it.
just curious, like a lot of people use state.
Yeah, I'll have to look up
State,
because yeah,
but
I can't remember.
I don't know what's the difference because you say just the timing is not right.
I'll read it for you. Okay. But yeah, float, why does it behave that way? I don't have an answer. They shouldn't have done it. But as soon as I do this, see, that's a mixed expression and it will work. Really strange. I don't like it, but that's how they behave.
It says the reference that the in-stream method for each asynchronous operation, which is one time.
See, it gives infinity. It does it with real numbers. I don't know why. It's just how it is.
Next week is your midterm exam? Because
Yes, there will be.
I had in
Yeah.
and there will this level for that.
Everything you've done in class. What kind of question? I'll tell you. I'll post it on Blackboard.
Yeah, that's a kind of project assignment or like MCQs.
I haven't decided. I will in a day or two and put it on Blackboard as to what is expected.
Okay.
Will you be getting multiple choice short answers? Will you be getting a program to do in class?
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Okay, sure.
Just steady, right? As if you were doing something. Okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to say each, you say four. So takes a card object, both cards, and it goes through. See the way to find the array list player here. So it goes through the array list. So it, like when you call it, just say player one, player two. So it goes through each card and player one or player two. And, so right now, it wants to get the face value of each card that it selects.
Right. And the goal of the 415 method is to see if the player has 4 cards at the same time. So if one of the players has 4 cards that have all say number 2 for the base value, then we check that.
Yeah. And if they do have 4 of that card, we remove that from their hand and give them a point.
So I wasn't sure if the for each was going to be given a code for 840.
Oh, yeah.
Not too much. It's just easier to do it in for loop because you don't know how many cards the player's going to have. I just don't know how to compare it to make sure that they have.
Make sure. Plus, when I was creating the method, I looked back on face values just to make sure that because as you know, there's certain values that there's 2 and more teams, which includes the ace, the king, the queen, the jack. I was going to be sure that it accepts any of those space values, not just one, but otherwise it would be too specific.
Yaka, what was it? Invalid state, you said? Illegal state. See, it is a runtime exception. It's a runtime exception. Runtime means system dependent. There are 2 classes of exceptions, runtime and not runtime, I mean, but runtime exception is just, if you kind of read about it, it will tell you that these occur due to arithmetic. Oh, it's okay. We should be able to understand it and handle it. Method has been made an illegal. Oh, you know what it is talking about? I'll read it, but I think it's talking about concurrency, threads. You know what concurrency and threading is? A process can call, more than one processes can run at a time. So it's not one code that is running, more than one. And when it calls another process, maybe it's talking about mismatch or not synchronized. I'll have to read it. But it's our code. It's our code, not the system. So it's something in the code. I'll have to read about it. I'll let you know. Depends upon what kind of exception are you handling. Illegal arguments means that the argument you're passing to the method is illegal. So that's a different exception altogether. Illegal argument means that one of the values that you're passing to the method is illegal, is incorrect. So you have to use the right kind of exception for the exception you are trying to catch. So they're not exchangeable. Every exception has its own use. For example, division by zero is an arithmetic exception. You won't say it is an illegal argument exception. So this must have its own use, and we have to find out what its use is. Right? So there are different kind of exceptions to be handled for different reasons. So division by zero is always an arithmetic exception. You can't say, oh, I'll catch it in illegal argument exception. You cannot, because it's been predefined. So if something is illegal in the argument, you have to use the illegal argument exception. But this one is saying illegal state, so I have to read, and it has something to do with timings. When is one calling the other? And I think it is a concurrency thing, which of course is a little ahead of in this course, but hopefully you will do it in the advanced course, because it's yeah, makes sense, because in games when it's time bound, right? Everything has to be done. You can't do something before time, in the sense you have to create a player before the player can play the game, or you can only go to step number 2, phase 2 of the game, after you complete or become a winner in phase 1. So they're kind of time bound, time dependent, and that's where therefore it's being used in games. That's what it means. Okay, roughly that's what it means. Okay guys, let's go forward. You will notice in the product class there are a few more methods whose bodies are not complete. So the method body is missing. So I want to do it with you so that you see what I'm trying to do, and I want you to write code for me for these methods. So till date we've done toString, all getters and setters. We know how to throw exceptions. We know how to handle them also now, right? We also know how to handle them. Are we okay? Do you want to settle or leave? You're leaving. Okay, thank you. I thought you were not in my class, or are you? Did you come for a flying visit? No. Okay. Okay. Now let's write the next method, and let's see its importance. So now when you have a product in inventory, an obvious method should be how to restock, right? So you want to add more to the stock. So there has to be a button which says restock. You know what I mean? So what are the methods that you put in a class? So getters and setters and toString are all kind of okay, because they're just there. You don't have to think a lot about it. But now you have to think, what do I do with the product? So let's look at those methods, which we haven't thought of right now. Yes, we did with an employee. We could give a raise to an employee. So that was a method that should go in the employee class, because you were giving a raise. Now let's look at other methods that can go with the product. Sorry. So definitely you would like to restock a product. So I must have a method for it. You would definitely like to sell a product. So I must have a method for it. You may be selling one of a product, or you may be selling 10 of a product. You'll say, what's the difference? In the one, you don't have to pass it any parameter. You just say sell product. In the 10 one, you will say sell 10 product. So I'll give the user both methods. If he's lazy, he doesn't have to input a number, and one will be sold. If he wants to sell more than one, he uses the other method. Though I could use one method and say, I will pass a value if it is one, sell one, if it is more, sell more. But I'm just making it easier for the user. We all want stuff at the tips of our fingers, right? We don't want to do any extra work. So if there is a button which says sell one product, I would rather click that button rather than saying sell product and then giving input of one. You know what I mean? That takes more time. So make it easy for the user. So let's write the restock first. So please understand why this method is being written. This method is being written because in an inventory, you will always restock a product. Now, I haven't taken many things in consideration, the maximum limit, the reorder level, but generally speaking, at least for my product class, how will you restock? What is the meaning of restock? Add more. So whatever is already there, take that quantity and add more to it. That's what restock is. So what do you need from the user? How much more to add, right? And that variable, that parameter is amount. So this method adds the given amount of the product to its stock. So whatever is already available, it will add more to it. That's what restocking means, right? It's just restock more. And what is the amount? The number of items of a product to be added to the stock. I'm not saying replace. I'm not doing a set. I'm saying add to it. So it's not set quantity. It's adding to the quantity. And it throws my exception if I try to add 0 or less. I mean, doesn't make sense. What's the sense of adding -5 of keyboards can happen? And there's no sense of adding 0 because I'm adding nothing. 0 is not, 0 you can always take on both sides. As long as there's okay to do. So I'll say, oh, add 0 of this. You'll say, that doesn't make sense. You should never give a 0 value. On the other hand, you can say adding 0 means adding nothing, which is not incorrect. Logically, it's okay, but doesn't make sense. Okay. So what should you check before it says throws my exception if amount is less than 0? So we exactly know what we have to check. If the amount is less than or equal to 0, what do we need to do? We need to throw an exception of type my exception. And what kind of message would you like to pass it? You'll say amount to be added should be greater than 0. Do you understand the restock method? I mean, it won't make sense writing the code if you don't understand it. Restock just means adding more to the stock, right? Maybe instead of restock, you want to call it add stock. Maybe that makes more sense. If you want to do that, you can do that if that's making more sense to you. And it could, because it makes more like add stock. Does that make more sense? Restock is the same thing. They use restock in the inventory market, but if that makes more sense, call it add stock. So you're adding to the stock. You're not checking has it gone beyond this maximum quantity. You're not doing, you're just adding. So as I said, there is much more I could do. I'm trying to keep it simple. Okay, so if you're adding a negative amount, how can you do that? You cannot. So you can say number of, what should I say? Amount is not a bad word, but I was trying to make it more English-like. Number of pieces? No, number of pieces doesn't make sense. Number of units. There. Number of units to be added to stock should be greater than 0. Make sense? Right? So you're basically saying number of units to be added to stock should be greater than 0. So you can't add a negative number. Again, if this amount doesn't make sense, you want to call it number of units. Sure. You know what I mean? Like anything that makes more sense. Amount was making absolute sense. Now that I look at it, it's more number of units, but that's okay. So amount is perfectly fine. So that's one thing. Oops, no, I always mess up. Okay. Else, what do you need to do? So that's your if. Again, else is not required. Don't do it, guys. Don't write else. It's kind of saying you don't know what the throw does. Throw simply aborts the code right there and goes back to the calling method, whoever has called. Okay, else what? What do I need to do? How do I add something to a product? What do I have to change? If I add certain number of units to a product in stock, what am I changing? Which attribute of the product am I changing? Am I changing its ID? Name?
Quantity.
Quantity. Speak up, guys. I have to know. Right? I'm changing the quantity. So I need to call which method to change the quantity? Set quantity. Never do assignments yourself. Always call the set method. Why? Because the set method is doing the validation. So don't say quantity. So you could have done this, which is not correct at all. I wouldn't like you to do it, guys. You could say quantity's new value is the old value plus amount. Logically, there is nothing wrong in it. Like logically, it looks fine. What's wrong? All you are doing is taking the amount and adding it to the quantity. But there is a set method that does the job, and it does error validation too. Don't assume that, oh, nothing can go wrong. Let the set method do its job. Let it set the quantity. So what should you be doing? So I don't want to see this at all. What do I want to see? I want to call the set quantity method. What do I want to do in the set quantity method? Take the current quantity and add amount to it. Now you could just say quantity here if you like, because, or you can get quantity. You know what I said? It's just whenever you're going to manipulate or change anything, it's just recommended that, you know what, don't be smart. Let the system take care of you. I can never go wrong here now. Never. I'm getting the quantity from the product. I cannot go wrong. I'm actually getting its quantity. And then I'm using the set method to set. Validation is being done. Irrespective, don't say, oh, how will it be wrong? Your quantity is positive. You've already checked my amount is positive. Positive and positive can never go wrong. Why are you bothering? We have to bother. We always write defensive program. I can never go wrong here. Yeah, this is an overkill. This could be an overkill. You can simply say quantity here. Like you could use the instance variable if you like. But nothing in set. I always want you to use the set methods wherever you are making any change to that particular instance variable. So that could be an overkill, getting it and then adding amount to it, but it is highly recommended. It says talk to the object, right? Talk to the object. How do you get the quantity of the object? Give me your quantity, get the quantity. So it's always talking. And many of you have done this error in your employee first assignment. Good that it has come up. When you update a person's salary, don't use a local variable salary which you have read from the user. I know it is the salary of the user, but we're not going by local variables. We say, give me your salary, get the salary, change it, and set it. Always. Right? Now, that was absolutely different. You were in the application. You were using a local variable salary that you had prompted from the user and you're using it. It's not wrong, but it is not 100% correct. So you will lose marks. And even here, it's okay to use quantity, but never without this. You will definitely lose marks if I don't see this. I always want you to use the set method to change anything, anytime, irrespective of whether you think error can occur or cannot occur. This way you are safe. Otherwise, what was the sense of writing the set method? Don't reinvent the wheel. Now, the get is, as I said, it's up to you. I don't think I should be docking marks off here, but this is a more recommended way of doing it just because you can't go wrong. But without the set, definitely you will lose marks. I'll definitely say, no, that's not how you do it. You're not writing the code efficiently. Right? So you'll say, but again, calls are expensive. Every time you call a method, it's taking time. There is a time involved there. But in situations like this, there is no risk of time. It is 100% correct rather than wasting a little bit of microseconds. Okay? So this is how you will change it. So not this, I don't want to see this. So you can make a note for yourself. Not this way, please. Don't give this to me, okay? This is for you, so that you don't forget. Don't give me this. I don't want to see this. So make sense? That's how you add stock to a product. How much to add? Check it is positive. Add it to the quantity. That's all you do. Anything else that we do when we add a stock? No. That's all we do. Now, of course, there was something extra to be done if there was a maximum limit that I can stock to. I can't stock more than 20 keyboards. I don't sell more than 20 keyboards in 6 months. Then I would do an if for the amount should be positive, and I'll also do that your maximum, the difference between what you have right now and maximum, you have enough to stock that amount. So we'll have to do more coding there. But as per se, right now, nothing. Keep adding. You can add as much as you like to your inventory, which is not a true picture. It's incorrect logically. You can't keep adding. No inventory keeps adding for, like, there is a physical aspect to it. When you stock inventory, you need physical space. It's not in the air, right? So you can go on forever. Okay, so make sense?